Now for what's trending in true crime. A Louisiana mayor is out on bond after being accused of allegedly having sex with a minor. Misty became the first woman to hold office of mayor in DeRidder, Louisiana. Louisiana State Police arrested her last Thursday on charges of third-degree rape and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Now, she was released after posting a $75,000 bond. This arrest comes less than a week after she announced to everyone that she'd be taking a 2-week leave of absence, but then she abruptly resigned with a letter. So we're asking, what does her resignation say to you? Let's bring in our guest, criminal defense attorney and law professor Don Milarczyk, retired FBI special agent Jennifer Coffindaffer is joining us, and retired defense attorney Kirk Nurmi with us as well. Thank you all for being here and for joining us. This one is a very interesting case. We're still learning more about it. We don't have information on the age or gender of the accuser, but we know there was a friend of the accuser who also corroborated their story. Jennifer, let me start with you. Your initial reaction to the allegations in this case.
Well, of course, it's very disturbing whenever you have someone in a position of authority, such as a mayor, be accused of these types of allegations. Anyone who is in such a position is usually very influential on a lot of individuals, and to use that power and authority possibly to influence sexual favors with someone who is a minor is truly disturbing.
Her resignation letter basically says that she is proud of all the work she's done there in this county, Kirk. She likes everything that has been built, but she felt that she needed to step away. This resignation, no doubt to the public, can have some kind of implication, but what could it have on this criminal case against her?
Well, I don't know this is going to have any direct implication of the criminal case, but it gets her out of the spotlight, if you were. As mayor, she's accessible to the public. Questions are going to be posed, things of that nature, right? And she's probably going to have a defense attorney, and if she's smart enough to follow the defense attorney's advice, they're going to tell her not to talk, not to be in a position to comment on any of the evidence that's coming forward. And as it begins to leak out because of her status as mayor, if she's in a position where she's not forced to answer these questions or confronted with these questions, that's better for her criminal case. So I think what we're really seeing here by this resignation is that she is taking the advice of her counsel. She's taking it seriously, and it's probably not a good. The evidence coming forward is not going to look good for her as the case unfolds.
Yeah, Don, it sounds like she had a heads up potentially about these charges coming down, or perhaps about this outcry. Your initial thoughts on this case?
Yeah, Julia, that's not too surprising. I mean, we don't know exactly what led to the arrest, but oftentimes there's a search warrant. For instance, they could have seized her cell phone, her computers, they could have searched her house. Once that happens, a smart individual gets in touch with a criminal defense attorney. That defense attorney reaches out to law enforcement, tries to make contact with a prosecutor and say, hey, what's going on? So it wouldn't surprise me if she had some kind of inkling that this was coming. Obviously, the resignation before the charges was pretty smart. I agree with Kurt. A good defense attorney is going to say just that. Look, real short, sweet, simple resignation letter. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. And that's it. Now you shut up. You let your attorney gather the evidence and you see how this unfolds.
We know that the local sheriff's office in that area asked the state police to look into these allegations against Roberts, and they interviewed 2 juveniles, one of whom is the alleged victims. At the time of the arrest, Roberts' attorney issued this statement saying, "My client learned late last night of a warrant despite not being contacted to be interviewed prior to investigators obtaining the warrant. My client maintains her innocence." Now, Roberts, these allegations or accusations against her charges for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. She has not ever been the word in the trial. These charges have not actually come to a conviction. So this could be a rush to judgment. Our question is about her not being interviewed. And Jennifer, let me go back to you about that. Do you think that's strange that in a case like this one, there wouldn't be an interview before this arrest?
No, not at all. And this is why they were still collecting evidence. Whenever you go into an interview of this nature, you want to have all available evidence in your tool belt. You want to understand everything. So it's something that they can obviously try to interview her later when her counsel is there. It's a possibility. But I like the idea of not interviewing until you have a lot of the answers already in your hip pocket.
Kirk, as a defense attorney, your thoughts on them going this route of not having the full sit-down interview with her when you have an outcry witness? Do you think it's because there's this corroborating friend of the alleged victim?
Well, it is a little surprising because you would think, from my perspective, you'd think they'd want to seek a confession out of her using some of the evidence that they have that motivated the arrest warrant. But Julia, I don't think it's the corroborating witness so much as it might be corroborating evidence, like things we see, this digital footprint that we talk about in so many cases. What were her text messages, other messages, social media interaction with the victim in this case? All those things can add up and almost negate the need for an interview, because if they're conclusive enough, these messages, this interaction, that could be enough to get the arrest and frankly, to get the conviction without a confession.
Don, do you think her position as mayor, she's a 42-year-old woman, we understand she was married back in 2008, do you think her position as mayor could be the reason that the sheriff's office didn't want to wait, didn't want to go through this interview process with her just for accountability when it comes to a public servant?
Julia, that's a great question. I got to say I was a little bit bothered by the attorney's statement because honestly, at any time, an attorney can pick up the phone, call law enforcement and say, hey, my client wants to sit down with you and talk to you. So he always had that opportunity. The truth is, you would never do that. No defense attorney worth their weight in salt would ever sit down and have an interview at this stage of the proceedings. You don't know what the evidence is. You don't know what your client's specifically being accused of. So you wouldn't want an interview. So it's a little bit disingenuous to blame the police for not affording that opportunity. Once she's represented by counsel, the law enforcement must contact the attorney. They can't just show up at her house and say, hey, we want to interview you. So I don't know all the facts and circumstances behind that statement, but it struck me as a little bit odd because you always have the right to call law enforcement and say, hey, my client wants to be heard. She wants to sit down. Let's have a meeting. And believe me, law enforcement would make that happen immediately.
That is a great point, that they know she's represented by counsel, especially now, probably knew she was going to be represented by counsel. And when she got that resignation letter written up, she may have already had that counsel. So it would have not been much of a point to have that sit down or try to get one. Now, today we are launching a new thing here on Opening Statements, a members only Monday, and it's through our Court TV YouTube page. It's what our armchair attorneys are saying about the case, our 13th jurors. Now, T. Mumfield, she says that this mayor resigned because she got caught. Shame, shame. And Michelle from South Carolina says that it's disgusting. To join the discussion on our members only page, click membership on our YouTube channel. We'll be reading some of your comments on air.